So now we're going to study the last class of attacks, namely UI-based attacks. So this is attacks based on the user interface. And they're pretty tricky attacks as well. So one such attack is called clickjacking. So the idea is that this is an exploitation where the user's mouse click is used in a way that was not intended by the user. For example, let's say I have this HTML code. When the mouse is clicked down, it's going to open a window to attacker site, which is not something that the user may intend. But the text in HTML, it says go to Google. And even when you hover on it, this href shows google.com, right? Because when you hover over it with the mouse, you're going to see the hyperlink, which is going to be google.com. So the user is going to think, great, I'm just going to click on this, I'm going to go to google.com. But there's going to be another window opened to attacker.com. Okay, so this is an example of an unintended effect. Okay, so some much more, much more sophisticated clickjacking attacks rely on frames. So remember that a frame is used to embed the page into another page, and you can use, for example, the iframe tag to do so. So for example, let's say we have this funnycats.com website that is framing bankofamerica.com. Okay. And so we have some, so then the user comes in and they log in to Bank of America, they put their username and password. And then JavaScript on funnycats.com is trying to access those secrets. First question is, what will happen in this case? Anybody want to raise their hand and answer? Or to answer on chat? What will happen in this case? If JavaScript from the outer page is trying to access the username and password of the Bank of America frame. Nicholas?
It doesn't work because same origin policy blocks it.
Exactly. It doesn't work because of the same origin policy that blocks it. Exactly. All right, so that doesn't work, but you can actually do some more sophisticated things to basically get it to work with clickjacking. With clickjacking, we can bypass same origin policy for frames. So here's an example. You have, again, an evil site that frames a good site. Now, the evil site is going to cover the good site by putting dialog boxes or other elements on top of parts of the framed site to create a different effect. So now the inner site looks different to the user. For example, let's say I have this PayPal frame inside some outer evil site. And so I'm supposed to transfer some payments to, $5 to someone. I don't want to transfer more than $5 to this person. So one thing that they can do is they can actually cover from the outer page, you can put some UI, pieces of UI that covers the pieces of the inner frame. Okay, so these are parts of the outer frame, but they're just placed, location-wise to cover the inner frame. They're not drawn inside the inner frame because the outer frame cannot have access to the inner frame in any way. Remember, by the frame, in same origin policy, the outer frame cannot do anything inside the inner frame, but it can still, draw things on top because visually it can still locate items wherever it wants to on the outer page, and they happen to overlap. So for example, here, our victim user may be willing to send 15 cents to someone, but they might not be willing to send $5, right? So now the victim thinks that, oh, they're only sending 15 cents, and they're going to click pay when in fact they're paying $5. So this is an example of a clickjacking attack where the click is creating an action that is different from the one the user thinks. Is this attack clear? Is it clear why this is not something that we want to allow, why this is an attack? All right. Howard, you have a question?
Yeah, like I understand the idea of like like they're not paying what they think they are, but how does it happen that it's $5? I think I might have missed that part. Like, how is it like $5 instead of?
Yeah. So let's say that the outer frame is able to, so the outer frame can call an iframe with a certain URL, right? And the URL can be a PayPal request of preparing a form with $5, right? There could be such a GET request for PayPal. And then, of course, the post would happen when you do the pay. So basically, you put for the inner frame the URL that is a GET request for this specific form in PayPal with $5.
Okay, thanks.
Do people see how CSRF tokens wouldn't prevent this? I mean, this is very different. The CSRF attack is very different. Do people see why CSRF tokens wouldn't prevent this? The reason is that you're fetching the form, right? So the form could have a CSRF token, and when you click on it, it will be sent back to the server with the right CSRF token. So CSRF wouldn't, the CSRF tokens won't prevent this. This is not a CSRF attack. It's really the fact that the attacker is just visually compromising what the integrity of what the user sees visually, From the browser's perspective, these two are different origins, and one is not accessing the other. Great. So that's why they're super sneaky, these attacks. Of course, the attacker needs a bit of work to make sure they can overlap in the right place, the 15 cents with the $5, and sometimes they fail and the user is what's up to this page, but other times they succeed. Okay. So basically, in general, clickjacking is an attack that compromising the context integrity of another application's UI when the user acts on that UI. So the user looks at the target, it checks it, and then it initiates a click, and then it clicks it. So there's two ways to, two different integrities that one could compromise. One is the visual integrity. The attacker, the victim sees some things and then clicks some things, but actually there's different things than what the user sees. And there's temporal integrity, which is the time, right? So the user checked the target, which should be equal to the target that was clicked, if there's temporal integrity. And the pointer that the user sees should be the pointer that clicks, not a different pointer. Okay, so this is what happens when you have integrity, but we'll see how an attacker can compromise these aspects. So you have context integrity when you have both visual integrity and temporal integrity. And clickjacking, can attack any one of these integrity aspects. So in this particular case, there's an example of compromising visual integrity because what the target that the user looks at, that the user checks, is different from the one that's relevant to the click.